story. Apparently, palace officials have been trying their hardest to strip Harry of his titles, but Charles...
Yeah, I agree.
So we are in total agreement. They are very dependent on each other.
From the second the jet landed on the runway at Heathrow, the murmurs started. Not because Prince Harry was expected to show up, not because anyone believed he'd return to the UK, and definitely not because he'd made any announcement. The reason the airport staff stopped in their tracks, the reason the cameras whipped around like weather vanes in a storm, was clear. Harry wasn't meant to be here, not this week, not at all.
Have been bumped down the pecking order when you go to the web.
Yet there he was, hood up, shoulders tight, walking with the quick, sharp stride of a man who'd just gotten a phone call he never wanted to receive. And why? Well, that's where the story suddenly swerves straight into chaos. The rumor mill had already been spinning for days, hinting that something unusual was unfolding behind palace doors. People close to the royal household were dropping clues, cryptic comments like "something big is coming" or "watch the titles," that's all I'll say. And you know how royal watchers are. Give them one crumb, and they'll turn it into a whole loaf spreading across the internet. But then it escalated. A leak, a whisper, information passed from one insider to another until it hit the press as a 4-word bombshell. Secret strip order drafted. That's when everything blew up. In tabloids, on social media, on talk shows, everywhere, people were asking the same thing. Strip what? Strip who? And why secretly? Some insisted it had to do with titles, others claimed it was about security rights, and a few hinted at something bigger, something unheard of. But the palace said nothing, no comment, no reaction. A silence so loud it practically echoed. And then Harry's plane showed up.
Favourite source for royal news, and quite right, not that we're biased. Harry said in his BBC interview that he was forced to step away from royal duty due to security concerns.
That's when speculation exploded into a full-blown hurricane. Because Harry has kept a very intentional distance from the UK ever since stepping back from royal duties. He treats London like a field full of landmines, every appearance carefully measured, every visit brief, every exit immediate. But this time was different. There was no charity event, no Invictus commitment, no legal case pulling him back. This was personal. And anyone watching him move quickly across that tarmac could see something had shaken him. People online started connecting the dots. What if the rumored strip order involved his remaining royal privileges? What if the palace had finally decided to act on consequences that had been whispered about for years but never enforced? And if that was true, why now? Why suddenly? Why quietly? Meanwhile, the palace wasn't helping themselves. Instead of shutting down the rumor, they did what they always do when trouble is bubbling. They closed ranks and refused to say a word. You could practically picture the heavy stone walls of Buckingham Palace leaning inward, clutching their secrets with both hands.
In Meghan of their royal titles, the New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview, which aired.
But not everyone on the inside was so guarded. Word started leaking from the usual off-the-record voices. They said there had been a meeting, a tense one, with senior courtiers, top advisors, and a couple of very recognizable royal figures behind closed doors, debating the next phase of distancing the monarchy from the Sussex drama. That phrase alone sent commentators spinning. Next phase, meaning there were phases, plural. And that's when the theory hardened. Harry wasn't rushing back because he wanted to be there. He was rushing back because he had no choice. As he left the terminal, trying to dodge cameras, absolutely determined not to let him disappear into the London fog, you could see it in his eyes. Something had gone seriously wrong. A man doesn't leap onto a transatlantic flight at a moment's notice unless someone, somewhere, hit a very serious alarm. Meanwhile, in Montecito, the atmosphere was reportedly tense. Meghan had been seen leaving the house hours before the news broke. But by the time the media learned about Harry's flight, she had gone completely silent. No statements, no comments, no cheerful walks, just nothing. And for a couple normally so precisely choreographed, so media-aware, that kind of silence says everything.
They're Prince Harry and the Duchess of Montecito.
Royal commentators instantly split into two camps. One side argued that the palace had finally begun the process of removing Harry and Meghan's remaining titles, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. The other side claimed it was about something far more urgent, their children's royal titles. And that possibility is what sent social media into a full-blown frenzy. People were posting theories by the thousands, screenshots, old interviews, body language breakdowns, side-by-side comparisons of past comments, and of course, the royal watcher's favorite pastime, tearing apart every vague palace update they could find. But here's the part that made everyone sit up a little straighter. Insiders said the alleged strip order wasn't unanimous. There were disagreements within the family. Not everyone believed the nuclear option was the right move, and quiet lobbying had reportedly been happening behind the scenes, discreet and strategic. So if a split existed, who was on which side? That's the million-pound question, or more accurately, the billion-click question. Some suggested senior royals were simply exhausted by the non-stop media chaos surrounding the Sussexes. Others hinted that certain advisors were pushing for a clean break, insisting the monarchy needed to safeguard its image ahead of upcoming coronation anniversaries and major public events. And then there were those who warned the opposite, that stripping titles could blow up in their faces spectacularly.
Does not distinguish between private or commercial use of the HRA.
All this chaos was unfolding as Harry arrived. When he stepped into a waiting black vehicle with windows tinted so dark they might as well have been painted over, the entire city felt electric. Londoners nearby were already texting, tweeting, live streaming, and the moment the car pulled away, you could practically hear reporters sprinting after it. For the rest of the day, the question hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud. Would Harry head straight to the palace? Would he meet privately with the king? Would he try to negotiate? Or was he here to fight? Every outlet had a theory, but none had confirmation. That's what made the silence deafening. Because when a royal returns out of nowhere, when the palace refuses to say a word, and when insiders start whispering about secret orders, it means only one thing. Something major is happening behind the scenes. And whatever this is, it's only the beginning. By the time Harry's car disappeared into London traffic, speculation had turned into a frenzy. Reporters chasing shadows, helicopters circling overhead, social media practically vibrating. The #strip order hashtag exploded within minutes, and royal commentators, both the credible ones and the completely unhinged ones, were lining up to drop their takes. Some said Harry had come to demand answers. Others claimed he'd flown in to stop something already underway. And then there were those who suggested he hadn't even known what was happening until the last moment, implying someone inside the palace had kept him in the dark on purpose. If that were true, it would explain the panic. It would explain the urgency. It would explain everything written across his face at the airport. Meanwhile, palace courtiers were doing their usual dance, avoiding eye contact, speaking in hushed voices, ducking into side corridors any time a journalist wandered too close. They weren't talking publicly, but privately? Absolutely. And that's how yet another rumor leaked. The king had been advised to act sooner rather than later. Sooner for what? That was the question no one could answer with certainty. But the phrasing itself, quiet, intentional, ominous, made everyone lean in closer. Royal watchers began digging through every legal angle tied to titles. Some argued that since Harry and Meghan stepped back, Parliament could technically remove their ducal titles if enough pressure mounted. Others insisted stripping titles would be unprecedented for modern royals, unlikely, but not impossible. And then came the push that escalated everything. Reports claiming Prince William had been raising long-term stability concerns during top-level discussions. That phrase echoed through every newspaper like a warning light: long-term stability. Some interpreted it emotionally, others politically, others financially, but every interpretation landed on the same conclusion. William was deeply worried about the monarchy's image. The endless interviews, the documentaries, the lawsuits, the accusations, the memoir, the non-stop public tug-of-war. According to several insiders, William believed the monarchy couldn't keep absorbing blow after blow from the public, the press, or political critics, and still function normally. He wanted clarity. He wanted boundaries. And apparently, if the rumors are true, he was pushing for those boundaries to be enforced.
William is planning to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles when he ascends to the throne.
Prince William is reportedly preparing to remove or revoke certain privileges and titles.
Formulating a plan to finally strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their HRH title.
And when William pushes, courtiers pay attention. That's when the narrative shifted from curiosity to concern. Commentators began saying openly what had only been murmured before, that William had become the family's anchor, strategist, and long-term planner, and that he was no longer willing to let the Sussex chaos overshadow the monarchy's future era. But this is where things got even more intriguing. Another leak suggested the alleged strip order wasn't a single document at all. It was a collection of contingency plans, multiple drafts, multiple versions, multiple pathways, each addressing a different possible outcome depending on Harry and Meghan's actions moving forward. In other words, the palace was preparing for every scenario. That's the detail that made people gasp. That's what glued royal analysts to their screens. That's what made Harry's sudden arrival look less like a casual visit and more like a crisis response. Meanwhile, back in Montecito, things weren't much calmer. Meghan had reportedly instructed her team to draft statements for every potential scenario, which only fueled speculation that she expected something significant to break. Some believed she was preparing for legal action. Others said she was gearing up for a PR battle. A few insisted she was preparing for both. But what really sent shockwaves across social media was the rumor that Meghan reacted with shock and fury at the idea the palace could move forward without notifying her. That naturally led to the biggest question of all: did Harry even know before today? Because if Meghan was blindsided, then Harry might have been too. And that possibility made everything feel even more dramatic. Think about it. What would it mean if Harry learned about a threat to his family's royal titles not from the palace, not from relatives, but from someone outside the inner circle? It would explain why he acted so fast. It would explain why he arrived on his own. It would explain why he looked so visibly shaken. Then came the next twist. Another insider claimed the palace's concern wasn't just about titles. It was about precedence, protocol, and representation. Essentially, they were worried the Sussexes were still benefiting from royal association while openly criticizing the institution. Put simply, they wanted to eliminate the contradictions. And as those whispers circulated across news outlets, royal historians began chiming in, pointing to past examples where royals who worked against the crown's interests were quietly pushed aside or had their privileges removed. And that historical context made people realize something big.
Duke of Sussex or Duke and Duchess of Sussex. I just find it very uncomfortable, and I think a huge number of your viewers would agree, that you either respect the system.
If the palace truly wanted to revoke titles, they definitely had historical precedent to rely on. But the detail that grabbed everyone's attention, the part that made even neutral observers sit up, was the mention of Harry's children. Archie and Lilibet's princely status had always sparked debate, but taking it away would be enormous. It would be global news. It would reshape the conversation for years. And that's what people feared the palace might be considering. By midday, royal analysts were noting how strange it was that King Charles hadn't appeared, hadn't commented, hadn't issued any statement at all. His absence only strengthened the belief that something significant was unfolding behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Harry's whereabouts turned into minute-by-minute tracking. Some thought he went straight to Clarence House. Others claimed he headed for Windsor. A few insisted a private car was seen entering a side gate at Kensington Palace, though no photos surfaced to prove it. That level of secrecy made the entire day feel like a political thriller. And then the next rumor dropped.
That's what you said, Jack.
Yeah, I agree.
So we are in total agreement. They are very dependent.
A source claimed that Harry had urgently requested a private meeting with his father, and in response, Cortés rushed to rearrange the king's schedule. The wording was vague, but the implication wasn't. Whatever Harry needed to address couldn't wait. By early evening, commentators began pointing out something they'd been avoiding all day. Harry looked like a man pushed to his breaking point. A man overwhelmed, drained, and stunned that the situation had escalated this far. And honestly, who could fault him? Even people who aren't fans of his admit that being trapped between the palace, the press, public expectations, and Meghan's pressure would wear down even the toughest person. Add the fear that his children might be impacted, that's enough to shake anyone. As the sun dipped over London, the atmosphere grew even heavier. Buckingham Palace stayed silent. Kensington Palace stayed silent. Sussex representatives stayed silent. Everyone was holding their breath, which is why the smallest details suddenly seemed enormous. The palace gate staying open longer than usual after a black car pulled in, a senior aide pacing on the far side of the courtyard with a phone glued to his ear, guards appearing unusually alert. Royal watchers were assigning meaning to everything. Some were convinced the king and Harry were meeting at that very moment. Others believed William was involved. Some thought Meghan was desperately calling Harry from Montecito. Some were sure lawyers had already been brought in. Some insisted the strip order had already been signed. Nobody knew. Everybody speculated. Then the final rumor of the night dropped, a rumor so explosive it practically shook the internet. A source claimed the palace was preparing to make an announcement. Not immediately, not tonight, but soon. Very soon. An announcement that would outline the monarchy's stance moving forward. Those few words set off every corner of royal media, because palace announcements are never made lightly. And when they come after a day like this, they usually come with consequences.